they come together, they form a greater organism. They become kind of part of an interconnected sort of leviathan. And I like to think of this as kind of nature's original transformer, if you will. But there they can access kind of a greater collective consciousness from being a part of this greater interconnected group. Hi, I'm Misha, and welcome to Vibrant Classroom, where I share reflections and revelations on the journey to create, speak, and be vibrantly. Today, I wanted to talk about the bounty of a pregnant pause. So if you read my newsletter or follow me on Substack, you know that I wrote a post on just this topic, and I think it's very relevant for the creative process and just the journey of kind of being yourself more fully. It's really relevant to pretty much everything, and it has to do generally with the cycles of yin and yang, of movement and pause that we experience in the world. And I wanted to talk about the bounty of a pause because, in the world today, it really glorifies movement and doing and yang and producing. So in this current paradigm, it's often more difficult to carve out a time of pause and reflection. So I wanted to talk about the beauty of that. And of course, if you did read the post, you'll know that I started by talking about how a lot of the most revelatory moments of life happen on the toilet seat. Now, I do really think this is true in my own experience. I find this to be true. Maybe you can relate. But I really think it comes down to the fact that it's one of those times in the day where, it's something that we all do on a day-to-day basis where we're just in a moment where we're not doing anything. There's absolutely no pressure for anything to happen, whether apart from you just being there in that moment, kind of separated from the rest of the world and all the noise, where you're just in a moment of pause and being. So they talk about in science, and again, I'm not a scientist, I don't pretend to know all of the details of this, but they talk about kind of different brain waves and kind of the state that it activates. So supposedly, like as we go through the world and we're in a very kind of focused analytical state, perhaps more at work, they call this kind of the beta waves that are more focused on kind of analytical kind of cognitive functions that are very often task oriented. However, when you're doing kind of a repetitive but relaxing motion, or you're in kind of a general state of kind of ease and openness, this is when kind of the gamma waves are activated, and these are the ones more associated with kind of creativity, intuition, spontaneity, and these are the ones that often lead to kind of new ideas and inspiration. So it makes sense that those kind of happen in those types of moments. But I think it is counterintuitive that, kind of they often, sometimes people use the word peak moments. I think these are moments of kind of great excitement and revelations that happen often when you're connected to the gamma waves. But it might be counterintuitive to think of the fact that when you're in a moment of pause, that's when you can have moments of kind of greatest abundance, movement, possibility. Why wouldn't you have those more when you're in a moment of focus, more in a moment of intense effort? And I like to think of this as kind of often the difference between kind of humans putting a lot of concerted effort into something, and nature, and accessing kind of this idea of swarm intelligence. And again, I'm not sure that's quite the right word, but we see this phenomenon in nature. We see it in kind of a flock of birds, a school of fish, a swarm of bees, where, as an individual, they kind of act one way, but then they almost, when they come together, they form a greater organism. They become kind of part of an interconnected sort of leviathan. And I like to think of this as kind of nature's original transformer, if you will. But there they can access kind of a greater collective consciousness from being a part of this greater interconnected group that is much greater than the sum of the parts. But for humans, this can be a challenge because we have this idea, especially today, where we have very strong, often identities with ourself, with kind of our ego and who we are. So it does make it much more difficult for us to kind of step outside that and kind of move into this more interconnected way of being. But what we find is really once we do let go of this idea of ourself and kind of who we think we are, that's when we can access this greater abundance. And again, if you saw the post, you know I like to talk about the hero's journey, and this I think is so relevant because if you know the hero's journey, the hero starts out kind of living in their previous state. Things are fine, but there's sort of a level of underlying discontent where they know something's sort of missing. So they heed the call of adventure and they go embark on their journey, but they do hit a certain limit at a certain point. And it's not until they embark into the underworld that they're finally able to kind of receive this state to receive this greater transformation that then allows them to access this new power. So why does this happen in the underworld? You often see this in moments where the hero is kind of utterly spent, they've reached the limits of their physical body, and they kind of just relinquish everything and they give everything up. And in this moment of kind of letting go, that's when they kind of say goodbye to their previous paradigm. They, in this letting go and in this relinquishing and in this state of surrender, they kind of become a blank slate. And in that moment, they're able to kind of, in their non-attachment to their previous state or to anything, they're finally able to create a sense of openness where they can receive the new paradigm, receive the new power they have. So in Star Wars, one of these examples is in Star Wars Episode 4, when Obi-Wan Kenobi is training Luke, there's this kind of droid that's kind of shooting at Luke, and Luke is defending himself with his lightsaber, and it's not going very well. And then Obi-Wan says, let go, this time try it again, and this time let go of your conscious self and act on instinct. And he blindfolds Luke and has Luke do it again, and in that moment he does so much better. So here, the conscious kind of efforting mind-focused self, that's kind of like the beta waves, that's kind of like being identified with our sense of self or previous paradigm. And then the blindfolded, the instinct, the force, as it's called, this greater kind of interconnected consciousness, that is more kind of the gamma waves and kind of the opening yourself in the underworld to the new sense of possibility. So really, it's kind of this emptiness, and the disassociation and unattachment that creates this greater sense of abundance. So there are many, many other examples in literature, in film, and also nature that we have that show kind of the power of this. But it really is this sense of kind of unattachment that leads to this greater abundance. And again, one of the most common examples in our day-to-day where we find that state of non-attachment is when we're on the toilet seat. And I really like, if anyone has read Harry Potter, the gateway to London's Ministry of Magic is in a public bathroom. So I really like that very simple metaphor of this kind of portal into this magical realm as through the toilet seat there. Another thing that I really appreciate about this idea of openness relates to nature. So there's the expression that nature abhors a vacuum, and I don't essentially agree with that phrasing of it, but essentially what that is when you do create a sense of openness, when you do create kind of what you might call a vacuum in nature, it really is an invitation for new things to flow into it. So if you think about just a very simple example, if you open a door and a window, you're allowing a wind current to flow into it, whereas if it was closed off, that would not be the case. If you kind of have an empty glass, you invite someone to give you a refill, and if you kind of open yourself, you allow new things to flow in. So the same way, a wind or a liquid of any type, whether it's wind or water, could flow when there's a new space created. When you open yourself, you allow inspiration to flow in. So in closing, obviously I've talked about the wonderful toilet seat as one of those places, but there's so many other ways you can access that sense of flow that gives you this greater abundance. Maybe it's a stroll through nature and connecting to the sense of greater peace. Maybe it's on a yoga mat, which I like to think of as the original magic carpet, and that's probably where the magic comes from. But ultimately, it's any activity where you are lost and you're happily so. So it's really about kind of allowing yourself to just disconnect with these ideas of what you think you are supposed to be, how things are supposed to be, and you allow yourself into the sense of openness. So it really is oh my god, I forgot what I was going to. The really is it's called a pregnant pause because it gives birth to something beautiful. Well, thank you so much for listening, for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes of Vibrant Classroom, where I share examples of how to create, be, and speak vibrantly. Take good care.